Because there were some questions from a couple of students, I wanted to make one more quick video to talk a little bit about the chi-square test of association. This is one of the tests that's covered in the Bivariate content in modules 4 and 5, and it's a pretty frequently used one as well. So there are just a few little details that I wanted to go over. They are covered in the module, but I wanted to touch base on how to actually run this in SPSS and then how to look at the output. So just to make this example a little bit different than what is in either the module itself or in the homework assignment, I am just picking two categorical variables and am going to look at the relationship between them. So if I want to do that, I have you can see as you look at the screen that I have the SPSS data window already open. And for this, I'm going to look at Analyze, and then the chi-square is under the Descriptive Statistics option. And I want to look at crosstabs. So I already put in the row and column boxes the two variables I want to look at, and that's gender, and then the indicator variable, which takes a value of 1 if the participant is married and 0 if they're not married. So those are the two. I'm going to look at see if there's a relationship between gender and marital status using these two variables. And I'm also going to check and make sure that chi-square is checked for the statistics box, and it is. And then under cells, I want to make sure that I have not only the observed number in each of the cells, but also the row and column percentages, because that will be useful for interpreting the output. So all that's fine. Obviously, you can check the statistics button and the cells button to make sure that you have those. But those are things that you will need for the homework assignment. So I just hit OK. And here's what we have. So I'll open this up. So this is looking to see if there's a relationship between gender and if the participant is married or not. And just sort of looking at the bottom line, moving down into the output. And we can see that the chi-square value is relatively large, and the p-value for this is less than 0.001. So there's a significant association. In the context of the chi-square test of association, the null hypothesis is that there's no relationship between the two variables. So if you get a small p-value like this, the alternative is that there is a relationship. And then you can look at the percentages in the cells to figure out why that is. So for example, if we look at the females who participated in this study, of the 803 that completed both the gender question and the marital status question, 803 completed both questions, both of those items, and 501 of those were female, which is what we have right here. And this the other thing to look at, or another thing to look at, I should say. So 501 of them were female, 302 were male, and this would indicate that, again, of those 803, which is the number that's down in this cell, of those 803 who had both of these variables complete, 62.4% were female and 37.6% were male. But we would like to know if there is an association between gender and marital status. What does that mean? You know, what are the implications of that? Are females more or less likely to be married, and vice versa? So we can say, looking within the female row, so of all of the 501 females, 229 of them were married. And this is what would be called the row percent. So if I calculate just on a calculator 229 divided by 501, I get 45.7, which is exactly this number right here. So within the gender row, which is what we have right here, 45.7% of females were married and 54.3% were not married. And then if I look within gender in the male row, 61.6% were married and 38.4% were not married. 38.4% were not married. So the conclusion then would be that of those who participated in this study, males were more likely to be married than females, again, in this study. We could look at it the other way, and we could say, you notice that this table has the percent within gender, which would be the row percent. It also has the percent within the married column. So I could look, this is actually the column percent. So for example, I could look and see, of those who were not married, 70.1% were female and 29.9% were male. So that would be the column percent. Of those who were married, 55.2% were female and 44.8% were male. So you can see that in both groups, in both the married and unmarried groups, the majority were female, which is not surprising because the majority in the study were female. However, the percent that were female in the unmarried group is much higher than the percent who are female in the married group, which again agrees with what we already noted, that in this particular study, females were less likely than males to be married. This might be kind of confusing that I'm talking about the row percent and the column percent and what does it all mean. So for example, why I wanted you to understand where the numbers came from, to understand where these percentages came from. If I asked you, of those who were married, what percent were female? Well, you might look at that and say, if I look at, this is the married column, and this is the female row. And so I know it's somewhere in here, but I'm not sure if it's 45.7 or 55.2. So again, I'm saying, of those who were married, so this column, what percent were female? I could figure that out because I could say, of those who are married, this column has everyone in it who's married. There were 229 females and 186 males for a total of 415. Okay, so since that's my relevant group that I'm interested in, so I'm saying, of the 415 who were married, what percent were female? Well, I know that the actual number that were married is 229, and the total 229 females. The total number of married participants was 415. So I can just take 229 divided by 415 and get 55.2, which is exactly this. So this is the percent within the indicator variable for married, or this column of all the married individuals. There are some questions on the homework about this. For example, of those who quit, what percent were, I don't remember what the exact question is. So the thing that you can do every time so as to make sure that you're not getting confused about which of these two answers is correct is you can calculate it using your calculator by deciding what is the relevant column for me, column or row to look at, and then what is the relevant cell within that column or row. So if I instead asked you, instead of saying of those who were married, what percent were female, what if I instead said of those who were female, what percent were married? That's a different question. So of those who were female, I would look at this row, everybody who was married, the 272, everybody who was female, the 272 that were not married and the 229 that were married, totals 501. So of these 501 females, what percent were married? It's 229. 229 divided by 501, I already calculated it before, is the 45.7. Yeah, let me just verify that. So 229 divided by 501, yeah, 45.7, which is right there. So my suggestion to you, my strong suggestion, is not to get too bogged down in, trying to figure out, is it the row percent, is it the column percent, is it the percent within gender, or whatever, is to just ask yourself, at the first part of the question, there will be a question of those that have this attribute. So for this table, it might be of those who are married, which would be, there's a total of 415 of those participants in the study. It might be of those who are male. For that, there is a total of 302. That's always your denominator, the thing that you divide by. And then you just have to decide what's the cell that we're talking about. So if I said, of males, what percent were married? Then it would be 186 divided by 302. I sort of glossed over it quickly, but in this chi-square test table, we don't have this error message or this warning on the bottom. Or I should say, for this table, there are no expected cell counts that are less than 5. So it says 0 cells. So this table has 4 cells, one for each combination of gender and marital status. If, excuse me, if any of the expected cell counts was less than 5, you would get a warning down here that would say something like, one cell, which is 25% of the cells, have expected counts of less than 5. With the implication being that if any of the cells has an expected cell count of less than 5, then the Fisher's exact test is a more appropriate test than the chi-square test of association. We don't have that error, so for us, we can just look at the chi-square. So again, the chi-square is 19.0, the p-value is less than 0.001. You can see as you look at this table that no matter what test I use, whether I use the the Pearson chi-square, or the continuity correction, which is just another form of Pearson chi-square, or the Fisher's exact, any of those have this tiny p-value, which is indicating that by any metric, there's a strong relationship between gender and marital status for this sample. I will say that the book mentions the continuity correction. If you've put this in your homework as your answer to this any chi-square problem, that's perfectly fine. This is just a slight correction that gets used to make up for the fact that we're trying to estimate something to sort of make it, I don't know exactly how to say this, to sort of make it like a continuous distribution even though it is categorical. And this is just an adjustment that gets made. But you can see in this example and in most examples that you will see, the relationship between the p-values, whether you use the actual chi-square formula or this slight correction for the fact that the variable is categorical, are typically going to lead you to the same answer, to the same result, whether it's that you reject the null hypothesis because the p-value is small, or you fail to reject it because the p-value is large. So, sorry. So whichever one of these two you used in the homework, that's perfectly fine. Or if you ran something and got a warning that suggested that there was at least one cell that had an expected cell count of less than 5, and you used the Fisher's exact test, that would be fine as well. So that's my little overview of the chi-square test. If there are other bivariate tests that you would like to see more detail about, email me and I will take care of that. So take care and talk to you the next time.